afternoon and welcome to our Lehigh Northampton Airport Authority Board meeting. I'd ask you to please stand and conduct the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you everyone, and we'll open with a roll call. So Beth, please.
Mr. Chair, Ronnie Daines, Chuck Dicon.
Here.
Mike Dowd.
Here.
Frank Facciano, Glenn Geisinger.
Present.
John Hayes.
Here.
Larry Hemberger.
Present.
Ed Lozano.
Present.
Jeff Matskin.
Present.
Glenn Reedman.
Present.
Ted Rosenberger. Mike Stershik.
Here.
Matt Turk. Chris Worley.
Chris, are you on board on the phone?
Hello, anyone there? It's Ted.
Oh, it's
Ted
Ted.
as well. Okay. Ted, can you hear us?
Hello. Hi, this is Ted Rosenberger calling you.
Hi, Ted, can you hear us now?
I hear you, yes. I
So-
can hear you. I'm on the line too.
So we're gonna have to pass the mic around. So Chris is on the phone as well also.
Okay, great.
All right, and then Tara Zarinsky. Here.
Okay, great. Thank you, Solbet. And again, welcome everybody to our meeting. We'll open with public comment. Is there anybody in the public arena that would like to comment? Seeing none, I guess we can continue. So our first order of business is approval of meeting minutes from our last board meeting, July 30th, 2019. Has everybody reviewed? Any questions, comments? Can I get a motion to approve the minutes as presented? So moved. So moved by Tara. Can I get a second? Seconded by Mike. Okay, opening the floor to any additional questions, comments, edits on the meeting minutes from our last board meeting. Okay, hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of approving our meeting minutes from the last board meeting, July 30th, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, everyone. Looks like our meeting minutes have been approved. And then now we'll transition to our committee reports, and our first committee presentation will be by our Secretary Treasurer, John Hayes. So, John, I'll pass the floor over to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, you can pass it that direction. I'm technically on vacation, so
Okay.
I'm free to do the presentation this morning.
Todd, you may not need this, but
I don't know, the HR department thinks I'm on vacation. But you're here. Just can't say that to you guys.
Good afternoon, everyone. Go over the Treasurer's report for July. We'll start off with the month of July. We had a good month of July. We actually had 113 more passenger flights than we budgeted by this committee. We had 8 less cargo flights. However, the net landing weight was about 7% overall higher. So again, good news. We accrued roughly 50,000 for airfield and 50,000 for terminal in the month of July, which is part of the reason that the net revenue is a little lower, because that's reflected in it. So year to date, this is net income for the month. Yeah, there you go. Okay. Net income 4%. That's reflective primarily based on parking, and also on our non-aviation with the Rockefeller land option. So that's the 4% right here. You can add those. And expenses are down about 13%. Excuse me, up 13% from last year, down 7% for budget. A lot of that is headcount. In our forecast, which we worked on, we pushed back a lot of the contract expenses to later in the month, later in the year, which may show up later. But at this point, if you look at our year-to-date, we are roughly $1 million ahead of where we budgeted for the whole year. So if we were to stop now, we would be $1 million ahead of where we budgeted through December. But again, there's some stuff coming up toward the end of the year that may impact those numbers. Again, I tend to be conservative, that's just my nature, but we have some stuff going on that may impact that down a little bit. worst case scenario, we're still gonna be ahead of where we planned for the year, which is good. Again, the same things we talked about for the month. Parking revenue, which is up because of passenger traffic, we can talk about that a little bit in a second. And again, because of the Rockefeller land option, that's helping us out on the non-aviation, and our headcount is helping us out on the expenses. Contract and professional fees were pushed back because we had a budget earlier in the year. So year to date, we're doing pretty well as well. So you have, I gotta get these one side versus the other. Month, year to date, over there, 408.
They're both
They're both the same before they were switched, right? Yeah, the other one I did, didn't you? Okay, good one right there. The actual 273 for the month. We budgeted 106, so again, and that includes the extra 100,000 of accruals in it. Swing to, there we go for the whole. Again, that's the 1.9. There we are for the whole year. We budgeted approximately 894 for the year. So that's well in excess of $1 million ahead of that number at this point. Same factors we talked about before. Last year, part of the difference between this year and last year is last year we had that income for the TSA roof, and we had those easements for the Rockefeller side. So that's part of it. We're comparable to last year, year to date, except for that extraordinary income. Go to the next slide. This is passenger traffic. You can see where we are here. Legion at 16.2, and the other carriers are at 17%. So year to date, 16.7, good stuff. And that directly impacts our parking revenue because of that. So that's part of the reason it's parking revenue. Again, good stuff. Breakdown of stuff that I talked about already. Most of our headcount, training, all that stuff is kind of been pushed back. We have the extra fueling, which we did have over at Queen City. That's helped us out on that end. And also on there, we have some of those marketing incentives which are budgeted, but we have not used. And that's for the additional flights. So those are in there, but we haven't used them. This is the cash flow. We included in this one for December because we show potential sale in December, which is going to show as restricted AIP income. But we have a lot of projects that are falling in line, and that number will 9 million here, and then actually for July of next year, that number will show, you see it down here, we take the 9 million, we're gonna use approximately 2.5, a little bit more than 2.5 of that number, 2.4, call it, to get us down to here, and then next year's project, from December to July. Any questions? Pretty good, like I said, we've had a good 7 months. Anytime you're $1 million in excess of what you thought for the year, 7 months in, you're doing pretty good. Okay, thank you. Oh, and I did want to mention something I didn't mention at our committee meeting, which is on our pension fund for the second quarter, we were at 3.6%, which brings us at 12.8% for the year, which puts us in the 20 to 30% in our peer group, which is where we want to be. So we're in the top 20 to 30% of our peer group. And remember, our assumption is 7.5. So for this year, we're at 12.8 through December.
Great, thank you for that report, Todd. John?
I just had one additional point. I think most of us were here when we had the committee meetings last week, but just to get it into the minutes. Glenn and I had a conversation last week with the interest rate moves that we've seen, in particular in the bond market. There may be some opportunities for some savings in terms of our debt instruments, and we're also taking a look at bank accounts. We're basically looking at anything tied to an interest rate. As we speak now, we've got a 10-year treasury that's at 148. That's near its 5-year low. So there are potential opportunities. We have to look at prepayment penalties and things of that nature to see what makes sense. But we've started that review, and we'll report back on that at future meetings.
Great, thank you, John. And just for everyone's benefit, at the committee meetings last week, John, Glenn, and Todd did an exceptional job of starting to expand upon some of our traditional reporting, i.e. the charts that you see here have some much richer underlying data. They're breaking the revenue streams by kind of quote-unquote operating units, starting to get to the real gross margin and financial drivers beyond the headline numbers. So I think you're going to see even more robust detail. and thinking behind the numbers, and that's great. It's a great progression. And the reason I raise that is one of the things that's pretty exciting. I just looked at the passenger traffic, which was one of the key drivers for our growth. I mean, the trend is extraordinarily favorable. You know, we started in January 3% ahead of last year, then February 8%, then March 15%. Now we're at 23%. So our curve is going like this, and with that comes tremendous opportunities, but then of course there's going to be funnels and bottlenecks that we have to be cognizant of. So I think we're going to have to start transitioning from, you know, how do we keep the ship afloat to how do we, you know, maximize these growth opportunities that we're blessed with now. So I think, again, the team has been doing a great job of more forward-looking, getting into the numbers in more detail. So great job, and again, for those of you who didn't make the executive committee meeting and the finance meeting, there's a lot of real good strategic, robust thinking. So thanks, Todd, thanks, John, thanks, Glenn, good stuff. And at this point, I guess, John, anything else, or should we go to vote? No? Okay, so I'd like to ask us to have a motion to accept the financials as presented. So moved by, okay, and seconded by Mike. So any additional questions, comments on the treasurer's report? Okay, so let's take a vote. All those in favor of accepting the treasurer's report as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against? Hearing none, motion passes. Okay, again, thank you very much, gentlemen, for a great job. I'll pass the floor over to Mike for the business committee.
Thanks, Eddie. We've got 3 items to discuss. We're backed up in the documentation that was sent out to you, but the first deals with the approval of a bid to rent some rubber tire front end loaders, and I think Steve can bring us up to speed on that and answer any questions you might have.
Good afternoon, everybody. We're looking to award a 2-year rental contract for rubber tire loaders for the airport, primarily for our snow removal process here this upcoming 2 winters. It's a 2-year contract. Basically, the term beginning December 1 of each year, ending the following March 31st of the following year, so 4-month contract rental terms. We are renting 3 pieces of equipment for LVIA this year. One is a 3 cubic yard loader, and this kind of breaks down the cost. $29.70 per month, total $11,880, and then we have an hourly rental charge over 100 hours per month. The 3 cubic yard and the skid steer are primarily used for our landside snow removal out in the parking lot, sidewalks. The 8 cubic yard loader is a rather large piece of equipment that we use for airfield purposes only. There's no increase from our previous 2-year contract with Plaster Equipment Company of Lebanon. Part of the reduction in costs from the last 2-year term is we are not renting a loader this year for Queen City Airport, which is earlier this year. Part of the equipment is less than 3 years old and with less than 800 hours of usage, so it's new equipment. The airport does not permit this equipment to be stored off-season, so March 31st they come and collect it. There are liquidated damages included with this contract. The vendor shall be on call 24/7 and on site within 4 hours of an equipment failure. And then they must replace that equipment within 3 days. So it's pretty onerous on them to have this stuff up and running during the snow event. And then we also have another liquidated damages amount of $5,500 per week for each piece of equipment is out of service. So, yeah, looking to award this contract to Plaster Equipment Company of Lebanon, PA. They have a location right here on Stoke Park Road, so it's pretty quick to get this equipment right now.
I've moved that on behalf of the committee to pass it unanimously. For any questions, that will be a second, I guess, and then.
Second motion.
Do you have any questions? One that occurred to me is they pick up the equipment on March 31st. What happens to us with the Easter stove that we sometimes get?
Well, and that's kind of why we identified these months. Prior to, we did have that huge snowstorm last year that really caught us. It was 8 inches in October. We didn't have this equipment, but the good The good part is snowstorms early and late tend to melt pretty quickly, so they're not as, you know, in January, February, we need to push this stuff into big piles, and that's where the equipment
So
comes.
they're also close.
Yeah, close by. We had a skid steer fail last year, and they had it replaced within a day, so the new equipment's here the next day.
Thanks, Steve.
Yep, thank you.
Any
Do
other
we have,
questions?
sorry, just a quick projection for how much snow and et cetera we're projecting? Is it similar to last year? I know this is kind of
Usually
crystal
the
ball type
average,
stuff.
it's usually the average, I think, which is around 33, 32 inches of snow for us annually. And we break that down into somewhere between 15, 17 events that we're actually out to do snow.
Farmer's Almanac part of the projection?
It's all the weather report this morning, or
Yeah.
the news that
That's what I'm
said
asking,
cold
it
and.
says we're supposed to get more snow than normal.
Always.
Yeah.
We planned for the worst, and
They're always going to give you bad news, so we get, heard that before.
Good, thank you.
So all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed? Okay, thank you. Then Ryan's on call for the next two projects.
Make sure you have the mic tight so they can't hear much at all, so. They just have trouble hearing any discussion. I think anybody talking has to use the mic if they're gonna hear us.
Everyone hear me?
Good.
Okay, all right, thank you, Mike. Afternoon, everybody. So, the next two items, we had some pretty good discussions at our business and exec committee as well. The first one is to award a bid for the Hangar 7 apron repairs. Basically what we're looking to do, is make some repairs in the concrete joints for Hangar 7, replacing the sealant, doing some crack repair. Basically prolongs the life of the concrete pad, so you don't have to come in and replace the entire section earlier, which actually costs a lot more money than what we're looking to do here. We did receive 4 bids on August 14th. You can see the breakdown with the engineer's estimate and then the 4 bids. What we did take a look at, the variance with the estimate was the breakdown of the phases. There's about 10 phases to lessen the impact on our tenants, as well as 3 days for each phase of liquidated damages, which usually adds to the complexity. The one thing we did talk about, so Delaware Valley Paving, that was the apparent low bidder. When we talked to them and reached out, the price that they submitted wasn't based on the specifications that we were requesting, so they actually withdrew their bid. We went to the next lowest bidder, American Pavement Solutions. They've done work since the last committee. We got their list of references. They've worked at about 20 other airports in the last 4 or 5 years. Definitely have the experience from the smaller scale, $40,000 projects, all the way up to about 400,000 or more. So definitely comfortable with American Pavement Solutions. Again, talking with our engineer. The big thing, in order to do it this year, it helps us for our phasing into next year, doing a lot of the repairs in our air carrier ramp that desperately needs it, as well as hangars 9 and 10 in the out years as well. So we look for approval for that bid.
So again, on behalf of the committee, I'll move that to the floor. We need a second for that? Second. Okay, Larry? So any questions? All right, then all those in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed? The next one might engender a bit more discussion, so.
So the other item on the agenda is we're looking for approval to award a supplemental agreement with CNS Engineers. They are our construction manager for Hangar 11 that we've utilized from the beginning. With some of the conversations we've had, in order to effectively manage costs, construction inspection management, we use those types of services to really help us along, be our advocate with the contractor as well as schedule and moving the project forward. So due to the current construction progress as well as some of the additional analysis that, as we've talked about in executive committees as well, is they're looking for a supplemental services agreement of $539,000. The one thing to note is when you look at the project cost as an overall number with the contingencies we had built in with the 4 prime contractors, there's still about $419,000 worth of contingency remaining while including this supplemental agreement. We have been working with them to reduce costs, do some value engineering, I think as we talked about in the beginning, in order to help increase our contingency, and having them kind of working on our behalf is a huge, definitely a benefit to us as we're running into correspondence back and forth with contractors, confirming what they're submitting, meets the specifications, we're getting what we paid for. But the big thing is really helping us meet the PennDOT requirements that we have as part of the grant. That's a big piece in terms of the construction management support and inspection. So we had some good discussion at the committee, but we're looking for approval to keep their services going for the Hangar 11, to keep that moving forward.
I think to say we had good discussion would be a euphemism. You know, a pretty aggressive discussion, but I think fruitful discussion. For frame of reference, the committee recommended this contingent upon the review by the executive committee, and we did that in executive session and had again a rather extended conversation. But on behalf of the committee, the executive committee recommended it unanimously, as did the committee itself. So on behalf of the committee, I'll move that we enter into this extended relationship with CNS.
I'll second the motion.
Yes, John?
Yeah, just to,
A lot of us were here, so it's.
yeah, I mean, it was a very good discussion in both committees, and I think it's a good necessary step to keep this project moving forward. But the additional, I think, value of this is hopefully we'll start to get some insight on some of these big ticket items because, excuse me, you know, our capital expenditures are becoming much more significant than in the past, and you know, and they're probably projected to be even larger. And what would be helpful, and I had specifically requested this of CNS, is that in the Grace example, that we have a good, robust analysis on, you know, what did we expect in terms of, you know, budgets and the work, and what was ultimately delivered, and can we get a very detailed kind of forensic accounting, at least on the bigger bucket items, on how did we do? You know, it's kind of a review of how the project moved forward, and we haven't really had that benefit, right? Usually we hear change orders and, you know, something didn't go to plan and we're gonna increase, but what about the other areas where maybe we saved some money or had opportunities to save money? So I think they committed to also giving us a pretty in-depth review post-mortem of this as an example, and I think hopefully that'll be beneficial to us as we move forward with other.
Yeah, I think post-mortem is really a good term, because I think it relates to the experience we've had here and some other projects. And I think we could all be, you know, better instructed, I think, as we move forward.
Correct. So I think definitely everybody after the discussions at both committees was in full support of this additional consultative
Ryan, thanks for
extension.
riding herd on this, we really do appreciate it.
Yeah. So,
If there are no other questions, all those in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed? All right.
great, thank you.
Ryan, thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Mike, for doing a wonderful job leading our business committee, and Ryan, thanks for the good presentation. With that concluded, I'll pass the floor over to Tom for the director's report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that. As we heard earlier from Todd, great July numbers. And so actually our highest July passenger activity on record. So 94,298 passengers flew through ABE in July. So again, 23% increase there. Last July, another 20% increase in 2018. So again, just to see those 20% numbers year over year is pretty exciting. When we look at sort of what we've covered since our July 30th meeting, I wanted to mention and congratulate Steve Connors and his team. We received certification of our Workplace Safety Committee through the Pennsylvania Department of Labor and Industry. And that's been a couple of years in the making, Steve, and I know a lot of work went into that. Todd's excited too. And one of the great things is we really have a very robust safety committee. Steve's put a lot of energy and effort into that, and he should be congratulated for that. I think one of the ancillary benefits, which I know Todd does not see as ancillary, is a reduction on our workers' compensation premiums as we move forward as well with that. So just all around great effort. I just wanted to congratulate folks for that. August 17th, I think we saw a little bit of news about the movie at the air park. I wanted to thank the EAA. They provided 108 free flights to the folks interested in flying, and it was really exciting, and thank Brian Dames for all his work. I'm not sure how much water was in that shirt by the time he was wringing it out at the end of the day, but he looked a little warm, but it was a great event, so thank you. Also, August 19th, we had our emergency airport exercise. It's a tabletop exercise, and we had 89 attendees from 41 different agencies who actually participated in that event. So great mutual response, sort of emergency preparation exercise, and again, Steve, great job on that with his team. August 20th, Allegiant made a little announcement about basing some aircraft here, 18th aircraft base in their system. So adding 2 Airbus aircraft here overnight, which is exciting, as well as 66 new jobs, pilots, flight attendants, mechanics. So looking at that for February 12th next year. So staff is working on all the logistics behind getting ready for that new addition. And then I also wanted to thank our maintenance department. Back on August 27th, which was last Thursday, we experienced a water main break underneath our rental car ready lot. And so Old Faithful was geysering out of the ground at the moment, and we actually had several of our maintenance team that came in, got parts, and were there overnight, worked through the night to get this repair up and running, as this has also affected our terminal building. And so I did want to thank a couple of folks, Tom Schlaner, Steve Saki, Kurt Thomas, and Dan Ziegler of our maintenance department did a phenomenal job making sure that critical repair was done so quickly. And so we really thank the team for great work there. In terms of what's coming up, I did want to mention, we talked about this in our General Aviation Committee, starting September 1st, we're offering a promotion at Braden Air Park for our aircraft shelters. So for the first 3 months, we're dropping that monthly rental rate down to $50 a month. If folks stay on, they'll go back to the regular rate after that. But looking to entice folks to base their aircraft at Braden and utilize the aircraft shelters that are there. So just wanted to make that known. Also, September 15th, we have the polo match is back at Braden. So if you're interested in catching a fun polo match, benefits Equilibrium and the great work that they do in the community, that's 1 to 4 on Sunday the 15th. And also important, as it relates to all of the work we're doing, and as Ed alluded to, all the planning that goes into some of the development we see here, is our airport master plan. And the ABE master plan is winding down, and it's the last opportunity for public comment. So now through September 30th, the documents are available for public review and comment online. You can go onto our website, flylvia.com, download those documents, review those. We encourage people to do that and make comments. That's all included as part of the master plan submittal to FAA for ultimate approval there. So important to do that now through September 30th. And I think the last thing, just another TSA pre-check event, and that's coming up late September 30th through October 12th. And that'll be weekdays. This is going to be the RV unit, and so this will actually be not in the terminal building, but in the RV out in our long-term lot. And to date, I think since 2016, over 9,200 folks have signed up at ABE for pre-check. So it's amazing how many people are excited to have these events. We're happy to host them. So just another reminder, and we'll keep some more information flowing about that. But that really concludes the highlights of the report, Mr. Chairman. If there's any questions, be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Tom, and opening the floor to any questions for the director's report.
I have a question, but I did have a comment. I certainly share your excitement with this being a crew base for Allegiant. It's a long time coming with a lot of hard work, but it's finally a reality, and it's good for not only the airport, it's good for the valley at large.
Absolutely, great for the community, and great work by the staff behind you here and their teams. It's just, to your point, since 2005, I've always said this is about a 14-year project, work in progress, so thank you.
One thing I would add, and I know Tom and staff are working on it, is we are in the midst of planning for our strategic retreat for the board and staff. And at the executive committee meeting when we discussed this matter, we were asking the board and others to please provide ideas in terms of how to make that meeting, as effective as we can in terms of bringing ideas to the meeting, guest speakers, consultants who can help facilitate. So that meeting is coming up fairly quickly, so if anybody has ideas, and we've already received a couple, I would encourage you to please send those to Tom directly, because that meeting is coming upon us fairly quickly. And yeah, Jeff?
I think one of the suggestions was to name a facilitator
Yes.
to make this process better.
Mhm.
So I throw that out in case anybody here knows of any facilitators they can recommend.
Yeah, and quick update on that, Tara has already forwarded one strategic facilitator for the
Mike as
meeting.
well.
And Mike has as well, that's right, so that's great, we're making progress on that. Another thing, just in terms of an idea, is a guest speaker, maybe someone who could just provide us, some insights on an existing case or a business case of a situation where maybe similar, airport or business situation where somebody is just kind of spreading their wings like we are, and what challenges could we prepare ourselves for and how to overcome them, et cetera. So hopefully this meeting will be very rewarding and productive, and if you have any ideas, please send them to Tom. I'm going to pass the floor now to our solicitor, Robert Friedberg.
Thank you. I think that at this point, I'm going to request an executive session so that we can discuss pending litigation matters and a real estate matter, and I believe there's also going to be a discussion of pending labor topic as well. So if we can go into executive session at this point.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, can I please get a motion to enter executive session? So moved by Mike, can I get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mike Dowd. Okay, all those in favor of entering executive session, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're gonna enter.
Were all exempt from public session, and they included pending litigation matters, real estate development matters, and labor, status of labor negotiation matters. We are, as we come out of executive session now, there are two matters to be brought up for votes. First, we need a motion, ask for a motion with regard to pursuing further negotiations with the High Real Estate Group for development of property on the Lehigh Valley International Airport.
Can I get a motion, please? So moved by Mike, seconded by Matt. Any questions, comments on selecting High? Okay, hearing none, let's go to vote. All those in favor of moving forward with High Group in terms of negotiations on property at the airport, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes, thank you.
Record the abstention.
Oh,
John.
yeah, I just want to clarify, John is abstaining, John Hayes abstains from this vote, given a potential relationship with one of the banking entities. So thank you, John, for highlighting that, abstaining from the vote. So, excuse me, motion passes with John abstaining.
Next, request a motion authorizing the purchase of property on Willowbrook Road. Darren, what's the address?
1621.
1621 Willowbrook
Race
Road.
Street.
Race Street, excuse me, 1621 Race Street, on terms consistent with those proposed by staff during the executive session.
I think if I'm correct in motion, I think you should say authorize staff to negotiate with the property owner rather than authorize a purchase.
That's a correct statement of what we discussed, yes.
Correct. So can I get a motion to negotiate with the property owner of 1621 Race? So moved by Mike, can I get a second? Seconded by Larry. Let's open up the floor to any questions, comments on negotiating with 1621 Race. Okay, hearing none, let's take a vote. All those in favor of moving forward with negotiating on 1621 Race Street, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you very much. So we completed our 2 orders of business here. At this point, let's get a motion for adjournment, please. Anybody? Moved by Tara. Can I get a second?
Doesn't need a second.
Doesn't need a second. Okay, good. So meeting adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.